A crystal glass trembles in a billionaire's hand, poised between luxury and danger. Echoes of a quiet warning, spoken softly in Italian, cut through the marble hush of a lavish home. When trust slips and power is tested, it sometimes takes an outsider's eyes to see what's hidden. How far would you go to protect someone who sees you as invisible? Tonight, every line between loyalty, suspicion, and survival will be crossed. Stay to the end. This true story reveals that the smallest voice can save the loudest life. Elena Johnson adjusted her uniform with practiced precision, smoothing the dark fabric against her hips as she entered the mosaic-tiled foyer of Alessandro Moretti's Italian villa. Early sunlight poured through stained glass windows, illuminating marble floors where her steps barely made a sound. Around her, the house came to life. Gardeners sweeping the steps, cooks prepping espresso, secretaries bustling in with folders. But Elena, as always, moved quietly at the heart of it all, essential, yet invisible. To Moretti's world of powerful guests and lavish parties, Elena was just the maid. She supervised cleaning, managed staff schedules, and spoke 5 languages, though most around her never noticed. Only Moretti's young daughter, Chiara, took the time to learn Elena's real name, dashing after her in fluent Italian to share secrets or quiz her on classic poetry. For everyone else, society friends, business partners, even the head butler, Elena's presence faded into the ornate tapestry of routines, as unnoticed as the polished brass doorknobs she dusted each day. Still, Elena listened. She tuned her ear to every conversation in the corridors, merger negotiations over breakfast, whispers of old family rivalries after dark. She saw how Moretti's wife wore her diamonds like armor, how the estate's security seemed more for control than for welcome. On quiet nights, Elena called her mother in the Bronx, keeping to safe topics. "It's beautiful here," she'd say in a low voice, glancing at the grand piano she wasn't allowed to touch. But sometimes it's lonely. The servants' quarters buzzed every morning with rumors. Was the mayor coming to dinner? Would the American actress visit? Would Moretti's latest acquisition, some rare painting, finally arrive? Elena absorbed it all, careful not to betray opinion or bias. She'd learned early that in a house like this, you survived by being irreplaceable, yet never indispensable. Her days were long and sometimes sharp with the sting of unguarded words. "People like her should be grateful," she once overheard in the dining room, spoken without a second thought. Yet Elena persisted, folding pride into every carefully arranged table and cleaning task. Watching Chiara sketch animals at the kitchen counter, Elena sometimes let her guard slip, teaching her a new English word, or humming a lullaby from her own childhood before remembering to quiet herself as Moretti entered the room. But the real Elena lived between worlds, at once the master of every detail that kept the villa immaculate and a ghost in the eyes of those she served. Yet even as she faded into the background, Elena's sense of alertness never did. In a home built on ritual and image, she saw patterns missed by others, shifts in routine, glances too pointed, a tray left just carelessly enough. And on the night when everything changed, when threat crept unseen into the glittering safety of Moretti's great dinner, only Elena was poised to notice a detail that would make all the difference, not for herself, but for the man who had never truly seen her at all. Rain tapped a restless rhythm on the villa's shutters as staff hurried under umbrellas with orchids and tall vases for the event of the year. In the kitchen, Elena directed younger maids through their anxiety, polishing silver, folding napkins, translating between the American sous chef and the local waiters. The estate had never bustled so feverishly. That evening, as dusk settled, Moretti's great hall blazed with chandeliers. Guests swept in, politicians, financiers, beautiful women in silk, laughter bouncing off frescoed ceilings. Elena orchestrated everything with invisible choreography. Each place setting, each sparkling glass, each plate a testament to discipline no one would ever praise her for. It was during the final preparations for the toast that Elena's instincts prickled. She saw the new bartender, a nervous young man with uncertain Italian, pause when handling Moretti's signature glass, a slender flute always set apart. The head butler's jaw was tight. A kitchen girl whispered about a late delivery of rare liqueur. The bottle opened hurriedly just minutes before. Elena's eyes flicked to the tray. Moretti's glass bore a faint swirl at the surface, a subtle cloud where the others were clear. Heart pounding, she recalled Chiara's recent words. Papa's friends aren't always friends, you know. There are stories from when he was young about business enemies who don't always play fair. As the staff moved to the dining room, Elena lingered by the archway, watching Moretti raise his glass. The guests fell silent. Melted candlelight gleamed along the rim. The swirl, barely visible, caught the light just so. Elena felt every nerve sharpen, her mind racing through possibilities. An honest mistake, a trick of the glass, or had someone slipped something, counting on a servant's silence? A sudden chill ran down her spine. Would anyone believe her if she spoke? Was she imagining it or holding the key to disaster? Moretti smiled at his guests, prepared to toast. Elena felt her hands sweat, but her voice, when it came, was steady and clear, carrying in perfect Italian across the marble floor. Non lo beva, signore. Please don't drink that. The room froze. Every conversation cut short by a single warning, small but too piercing to ignore. For the first time, all eyes turned not to Moretti or the glittering table, but to the one woman everyone had tried so hard not to see. For one pounding moment, the grand hall was silent, like a clock between chimes. Moretti's glass hung in the air, suspended between confidence and catastrophe. Several guests blinked, unsure if they'd heard the warning correctly, as Elena's words lingered in the heavy hush. Moretti's eyes narrowed, searching for the source. When he realized the soft, fluent Italian came from his own maid, his brow tensed. First annoyance, then something colder, a flicker of fear. "Excuse me?" Alessandro managed, voice clipped between amusement and disbelief. Elena met his gaze from across the room, standing tall despite the weight of every stare in the hall. "Please, sir," she said again, louder this time. "I saw something strange in your glass." Her hands trembled, but her words were calm. "It's important." A few guests laughed nervously. It was unthinkable, absurd that a maid would interrupt such a moment. But as Elena held Moretti's gaze, her resolve grew. She saw the new bartender freeze near the kitchen doors, a muscle working in the head butler's jaw, the way one guest in a tailored suit shot a nervous glance at another. The swirl, that faint, ghostly fingerprint of something unnatural, remained. Alessandro hesitated. His instincts warred, pride and performance on one side, the primal edge of danger on the other. Finally, he lowered his glass. "Bring another," he commanded stiffly, every word a challenge. The staff moved in a flurry. A guard stepped forward. Waiters exchanged tight looks, and the room shifted uneasily. A sommelier discreetly sniffed and tasted the drink, his expression tightening almost imperceptibly. The toast was stalled. Moretti signaled the security chief and the new chef aside. Elena, her breath shallow, stood absolutely still, realizing what she'd risked, her job, her safety, perhaps even her right to remain in this house. In the private murmur that followed, Moretti's voice barely rose above a whisper, but his steely gaze never left Elena. "How did you notice?" he asked, not with accusation now, but with the rawness of someone who knows he's come close to something unimaginably dark. Elena inched forward, noticing that even Chiara's face was pale with shock and awe. "Signore, I've spent my life paying attention to things other people don't see." She looked at the frightened bartender. Sometimes details are all you have. The atmosphere was electric, the air thick with the potential for accusation or for gratitude. For the first time, Moretti truly saw Elena, not as furniture but as a mind, a witness, perhaps even a savior. Something in his face changed fraction by fraction. Authority gave way to wary respect. The toast did not resume. Instead, a ripple of uncertainty passed through the household. Some guests watched Elena with fresh curiosity. Others whispered about scandal or muttered about impudence, but none could deny the fact. The person everyone thought was silent and safe had just changed the night's fate with a single clear warning. After the guests filtered out under the weight of leftover tension and spoiled celebration, the villa's halls filled with whispered speculation. Security staff moved quietly, questioning the bartender and checking cameras. The head butler was summoned to Moretti's office. Some housemaids huddled in the kitchen, casting glances over their shoulders at Elena. Alessandro retreated to his private suite, visibly shaken. In his study, investigators arrived, silent men in crisp suits. The glass Elena had warned him about was sent to a lab for urgent analysis. Hours later, results confirmed her suspicion. The drink was tainted, laced with a sedative strong enough to have rendered Moretti helpless at the peak of a highly public evening. News spread quickly, both inside and beyond the house. The staff buzzed. Who would want to harm Moretti? Was it business rivals, a jealous partner, or someone on the payroll? The suspicion was everywhere. For Elena, the fallout was immediate. Some co-workers eyed her with fresh suspicion or envy. Others, especially Chiara, thanked her quietly, recognizing how easily disaster had been averted. Elena's own interrogation by law enforcement was tense and invasive. Did she know the source of the plot? Had anyone confided in her? She recounted in measured Italian and English every detail of that evening, the odd look from the bartender, the swirl in the glass, the moment Chiara had once whispered of hidden dangers. Her composure eventually convinced the police. They thanked her reluctantly and released her from suspicion. Meanwhile, Moretti faced a dilemma. His pride prickled at having been saved and challenged in front of so many. Yet, as he watched footage of Elena's intervention, humility crept in, mixing gratitude with something like embarrassment. That night, when Villa finally stilled, he called for Elena, alone. "You noticed what no one else did," he admitted, voice low. "I never thought to look for help from someone I never even tried to see." Elena, weary but proud, replied softly, "You don't have to see someone for them to notice what matters, sir." As dawn broke, life in the villa had changed forever. Danger had entered disguised as routine, but it was a quiet, careful courage that exposed it. And now every wall that separated master and staff, guest and outsider, seemed just a little easier to see through and, one day, maybe even break. The morning after the ruined celebration, newspaper headlines flashed across Italy and beyond. Maid's warning saves industrial giant. Billionaire's toast foiled by poison plot. The villa became a fortress of inquiries and media vans. Security doubled, and any notion of normalcy vanished. Alessandro Moretti woke to a world changed, one where a woman whose name he barely knew had become the last line between him and disaster. Inside the house, Elena found herself in a storm of attention and suspicion. Some staff avoided her, whispering she'd gone too far, or that maybe she only got lucky. Others, especially younger workers and those from abroad, watched her with quiet admiration. The security team now greeted her with nods of respect, while Chiara clung to her side, proud that her friend had become a protector no one could ignore. Elena kept to her duties, but there was no fading into the background now. Moretti himself approached her in the hallway, no entourage in tow, his expression softer, uncertain. "Elena," he began as if tasting the sound of her name for the first time. "How did you see what none of us saw?" She smiled gently, humility masking the fatigue beneath her eyes. "My mother always told me, when nobody listens to you, the only way to survive is to pay attention. You learn to read the whole room, even when no one is looking your way." He nodded, gaze lowering. "I owe you more than thanks, perhaps more than I can repay." In a gesture that startled the household, Moretti later announced a new position. Elena, now officially part of the villa's inner security team, advising on staff safety, protocol, and guest behavior. For the first time, her intelligence and judgment were publicly acknowledged. Chiara, delighted, declared, "Now you're not just the heart of the house, you're its eyes and ears." Elena's newfound authority became a lifeline for others. Staff began to confide their worries, share overlooked problems, even open up about unfairness or quiet suffering. Elena, once the invisible one, used her position not for revenge, but to uplift, helping a shy gardener with language classes, encouraging a cook's ambitions, supporting Chiara's hopes to study abroad. Moretti, transformed by near miss and humility, began to pay more attention to the world behind the curtains that once hid his staff. And for Elena, the villa became not just a place of work, but the unlikely stage for her true value and courage to shine. Months passed, but the story of that night remained. Elena's warning became legend among both the rich and the working, her courage a rare bridge across worlds that seldom touched. The villa carried a new atmosphere, trust replacing tension, curiosity overtaking suspicion. It did not happen overnight, but because Elena stood her ground, others began to believe change was possible. At Moretti's next gala, things were different. Elena, now in a tailored suit, moved among both staff and guests, not as background, but as a respected colleague, friend, and protector. The new butler deferred to her judgment. Moretti listened to her advice, not out of obligation, but genuine respect. Even Chiara, with blossoming confidence, credited Elena for her own growth. The press now called Elena the maid who saved a billionaire, but those inside the house knew her better. As an advocate, a quiet champion, a woman whose voice, once a whisper, now echoed through every gilded corridor. One evening, Moretti called for a toast, this time pausing before lifting his glass. He glanced at Elena, offering her a smile that, for the first time, carried no trace of superiority, only gratitude and trust. To the courage to speak when it matters, and to the wisdom to listen, no matter where the truth comes from. Laughter followed, easy and warm. For the first time, Elena felt not just included, but home. As the sun set on the villa, Elena stood outside with Chiara, watching the lights fade in the hills beyond. She no longer wondered if she was seen, because finally she had proven that even the smallest voice, when used with conviction and care, could change not just one life, but the fate of a household, and maybe someday the world itself.